Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Kark, and in this tutorial I thought about explaining a bit all the first steps required to set up a new Vue project using NPM and the Vue CLI. My goal today is to avoid skipping any part, so let's start from scratch by installing NPM alongside Node.js in order to install the Vue CLI. For those of you that already have NPM or Yarn, you can just skip directly to the Vue CLI part. So, let's dive in. The first thing we should do is just to Google download NPM. By clicking on the first result, we can see that it says that NPM will be installed with Node.js. So let's just install the LTS version. LTS stands for latest stable version, and that's the version that you should roll with. In order to install NPM and Node.js, you can just follow the instructions of the installer. On macOS, the installer may be slightly different, but you can just follow the instructions that are prompted to you. Now that the installation has been completed, by going back to the Get NPM page, you can see that there are two commands that you can use to verify if the installation has been successful or not. In fact, you can open the terminal and write down those two commands to verify the version of Node and NPM. If for any reason the installation did not succeed, the terminal won't recognize the Node or the NPM command. In some cases, the issue may simply be that you have to add both to the path of your system of choice. To do so, you can just Google how to add Node to my path. As you have seen, both commands worked perfectly for me, so I can proceed with the installation of the Vue CLI. We can do so by simply going to Google and typing down Vue getting started or Vue installation and clicking on the first result. In the installation section of the official VueJS guide, you can find some of the different routes that you can go with to include VueJS in your project. For example, you can use it with the CDN via the script tag or as an NPM package. What we are looking for is instead the CLI section, in which, as you can see, it says that you can use this official CLI to scaffold a new single-page application based on VueJS. So, let's open the Vue CLI documentation. Click on Get Started, and finally, go to the installation section of the documentation. As you can see, there are two ways to install the Vue CLI. You can both use Yarn and NPM. In this guide I will use NPM, but you can follow along with the Yarn because it won't be that different, and because every time there is a NPM command, you can just search for an equivalent command with Yarn. For example, as you can see, npm install-g is the same as yarn global add. Now let's try to install the Vue CLI using the npm install command. It may take some time, but it depends on your network bandwidth. At the end of the installation, you can try if everything is fine by writing vue version. If the command is recognized, it means that the installation succeeded. So let's go back to the Vue CLI documentation to understand how to create a new project. As you can see, the command is vue create and the name of the project that you want to create. So let's just write vue create and the name of the project, in my case, getting started. The Vue CLI will ask us how do we want to proceed with the installation. And the first question will be if you want to pick up reset or if you want to manually select each feature that will be included with our project. Let's select the manual installation. Then, as you can see, we have many options here. For example, Babel, TypeScript, Progressive Web App, etc. In this case, I won't select TypeScript because it's a subject that I will try to cover in another video. Let's select Babel in order to transpile the JavaScript code of our version that won't be present, for example, in an older version of a browser, like obviously Internet Explorer. Then let's select Router in order to have some basic router functionality with in our project. Then let's select Vuex, that will allow us to retain some data between pages, and the linter formatter in order to have some guide regarding the style and the formatting of our project, because it will make us know if we are making some mistakes. Finally, Let's go back to the CSS preprocessor and select this functionality, as it will allow us to have some extra stuff regarding the styling of our project. In this setup I won't be selecting unit testing or E2E testing because those are difficult subjects and it doesn't make any sense to include those in a beginner-friendly tutorial. When we are done selecting our features, we can just press enter to proceed with the scaffolding of the project. Then it will ask us if you want the history mode for our router. The history mode is a HTML5 functionality and let's just use it. Then it will ask us what kind of CSS preprocessor we want to use. I will pick the first one because I usually use CSS in my projects and also because I heard a couple of good things about that CSS. Now it is asking us what kind of formatting tool we want to use. Let's pick the first one, that's the most basic, but it will be the most easy to understand and configure. Now we have to choose if we want to lint on save or on commit. I usually prefer the lint on commit because it allows me to learn some stuff. Mostly because if it lints on save, I might not notice what kind of errors it finds around my code. When instead I can lint manually before committing, I can find any errors, find out the reason it is considered an error, and find the best solution to avoid this kind of errors. Now let's pick the first option because it will allow us to keep each configuration in its file. Now, if you type N in order to do not remember this configuration for future projects and click enter, it will scaffold our project with all the requirements that we selected. Now you should open your IDE or editor of choice and the folder of the project. As I have Visual Studio Code, I can just write code and the folder, the path, in my case dot, and it will open the project as a new workspace. Now I will try to briefly describe the files that the Vue CLI has created. The first one, the package.json, has three scripts that we can run on our project. The first one, npm runser, that I'm running now, will run our project, while build will build a bundle that we can later deploy. Lint will lint our code. Let's accept the firewall rules. Head to the URL that npm runser command gave us. As you can see, is a perfectly working web app. Let's head back to the editor. Inside the src folder, then router, by opening index.js, we can find the configuration of our router. In this project we have only two routes. This file, you can describe all the routes that you want to have in your project by telling Vue what kind of URL, what kind of path should your route have, what kind of component do you want for your page, and the name of the route. Let's open the home page, use it in the home route. Unfortunately, we don't have any syntax highlighting. To enable this functionality, we have to download an extension for our editor. In case of WebStorm, the procedure is slightly different, but the IDE will suggest you what to install. Now we can easily recognize all the different parts of our code. Let's compare this file to the page that we have in our browser. There is a logo and there is a component. As you can see, we have a logo and the component. We can try to add some stuff in order to see if actually modifying this file will correspond to a change in our browser. I will add a simple h1 element. hit save, and then go back to the browser. As you can see, we have the view edit title. Now let's open the component that our page is using. Hello world. Let's try to add some stuff inside. Component edit. Exactly the same stuff that we wrote in our component. When you want to use a component, if not globally imported, you have to import each component inside the page that you want it inside. In this case, the path looks slightly different than the default path. That's because we are using an alias for src. This alias is described inside the Vue Webpack configuration. To find this configuration, we just have to go to the node modules, View, then click service, lib and config. In the base.js file, we can see that this alias has been declared for the src folder. In WebStorm, this alias is not recognized by default because you will have to manually set the Vue-based configuration for Webpack. That also means that when you set this configuration, you won't be able to describe custom aliases because WebStorm allows you to choose only one Webpack configuration file. The Vue CLI has created a lot of different files for the configuration of the features of our project. For example, the slint.js, the Babel config, etc. But it didn't create the configuration file for Vue. By going to the documentation page of the VueJS framework and by searching for Vue config.js, it will tell you that you will have to create this file manually. To do so, we can just create a new file, call it vueconfig.js, and copy-paste the default export for this file. If you want to know how to customize this file, you can just read the documentation for the global CLI config. Now, I would like to show you one last thing that is actually really useful when working with a Vue project. By going to your application in the browser and opening your development tools, you won't find a lot of useful stuff. You will just find your HTML source code, but you won't find any information regarding your Vue components, the Vue state, etc. To improve this experience, you can search for the DevTools extension for your browser. At the end of the installation, you can go back to your application, close the development tools and open them again. You will find a new tab called View. This tab will contain a lot of information regarding your components and your pages. For example, it will allow you to see what data your components contain, what props have been passed to your components, and also some extra stuff like your Vue state or the custom events that have been emitted by your components. Now you have all the basic tools that you will need to develop a new web app using Vue.js. As you have seen, it's actually a straightforward process, so I hope you didn't expect anything revolutionary in this guide. But let me know down in the comments if you have any question, need any help with the setup of a new project, and also if you have any suggestion for a future video. Personally, I thought about explaining all the basics of Vue.js by simply going through the default files, like how to declare data, how to create a new method, how to add a new prop that acts as a parameter for your components, how to emit events in order to communicate between components and their parents, etc. But I will consider any suggestion. So, thanks for watching guys, and see you in the next video.